Have you ever seen someone be humiliated in public and felt that an injustice was being done, but not known how to stop it? Imagine being a concierge in a luxury hotel, surrounded by the wealthy and powerful, when one of the guests crosses a line and treats you with blatant disrespect. Lee Min-ho, the actor who has just arrived at the hotel, is about to witness a situation that will change everything for his loyal concierge. It's an average evening at the luxury hotel, a popular place where the rich and famous come to relax. The lobby is elegantly furnished with plush sofas, a glimmering chandelier overhead, and the soft hum of classical music in the background. The staff, dressed immaculately, are busy attending to the needs of the guests. Among them is the concierge, a man named Suk-jin, who has worked at the hotel for several years. He's calm, professional, and experienced in handling the high demands of the guests, but tonight, he faces an unexpected challenge. Suk-jin has been helping a particularly demanding guest, a businessman in a tailored suit who has been making unreasonable requests all day. He has asked for multiple room changes, numerous adjustments to his dinner orders, and even requested a private driver at the last minute. Suk-jin has done his best to accommodate every need, but it's clear the guest is becoming more and more irritable. As Suk-jin approaches the counter to check on the guest's latest request, the man snaps. "You really think this hotel is good enough for someone like me?" he sneers, his voice sharp and full of disdain. Suk-jin is taken aback, but he responds calmly, as he has been trained to do. "Sir, I'm simply here to ensure your stay is as comfortable as possible. If there is anything else you need, please don't hesitate to ask." The businessman, however, has no intention of letting things slide. He leans in, his voice growing louder for everyone to hear. "You are nothing but a servant here. A poor man in a uniform, pretending to be important. You're so lucky to even be working in a place like this. Do you even know who I am?" Suk-jin tries to remain composed, but the words hit him hard. The lobby, filled with high-end guests, falls silent. His eyes briefly flicker with hurt, but he does his best to hide it. He knows he cannot let this escalate, but the man's harsh words continue. "You'll never be in my position. People like you never make it anywhere. I should have you fired for treating me this way." Suk-jin feels the humiliation of the moment as the man's words echo in the room. The other guests glance nervously, unsure whether to intervene. No one speaks up, and Suk-jin feels more and more isolated. But just as the situation reaches a boiling point, Lee Min-ho, who has been quietly observing from the corner of the lobby, stands up. The atmosphere changes in an instant. Will the actor step in and defend Suk-jin, or will he remain silent? Lee Min-ho walks toward the concierge, his presence immediately commanding attention. The businessman, still fuming, doesn't notice him at first. Lee Min-ho approaches Suk-jin with a calm, measured step, and as he draws closer, the room seems to hold its breath. Suk-jin, standing behind the counter, looks up in surprise, his face flushed from the exchange, but his posture remains professional. The businessman, who is still in mid-rant, finally notices Lee Min-ho. His tone shifts slightly, as he recognizes the famous actor in front of him. "Oh, you're Lee Min-ho," the man says, his voice faltering a bit. For a moment, it seems as if the situation might diffuse, but then, the man's arrogance surfaces again. "I guess even you can't escape being served by people like him, huh?" Lee Min-ho, unfazed by the man's attempt to belittle him, fixes the businessman with a steady, unwavering gaze. "You seem to think that your status gives you the right to treat others like less than human," Lee Min-ho begins, his voice firm and clear. "I'm here to tell you that it doesn't. No one, no matter their job or position, deserves to be spoken to in the way you're treating him." The businessman, taken aback by Lee Min-ho's directness, attempts to brush off the comment. "I don't think you understand the way things work here. This is a luxury hotel, and people like me." Lee Min-ho cuts him off. "People like you," he repeats, his voice rising slightly. "What does that even mean?" "The people who work here, whether as concierge, cleaner, or manager, all play an important role in making this place what it is. You're no more important than any one of them." The lobby is quiet now, the other guests standing still, clearly uncomfortable but unsure of how to react. Suk-jin stands motionless, his eyes wide in disbelief, not only at the businessman's disrespect but at the fact that Lee Min-ho has stepped in to defend him. The actor doesn't raise his voice further, but his words carry weight. Everyone deserves respect, no matter their occupation. And if you can't treat people with kindness, then maybe it's you who doesn't belong here. The businessman, now visibly embarrassed, stumbles over his words. I didn't mean it like that. But his apology is weak, and Lee Min-ho is quick to call him out. No, Lee Min-ho says, his voice softening, but still firm. You meant exactly what you said. And now, you need to own that. It's not about whether you meant it or not, it's about how your words affect others. The businessman stands there, his face turning a deeper shade of red, clearly flustered. For a moment, he seems like he might lash out again, but Lee Min-ho's calmness has disarmed him. Instead, the man takes a deep breath and mutters, "I'm sorry," before turning and walking away quickly, his shoulders slumped in defeat. The lobby, once filled with tension, now begins to relax as the situation ends. Suk-jin, still standing behind the counter, looks at Lee Min-ho with a mix of awe and gratitude. "Thank you," he says quietly, his voice still shaky from the confrontation. I didn't expect you to intervene like that." Lee Min-ho smiles, offering a reassuring nod. "You didn't deserve any of that. No one does. I just spoke up because sometimes, it's the people who are too often overlooked who need someone to remind others of their value." Suk-jin, still trying to process the moment, feels a wave of relief wash over him. The humiliation he had felt moments ago seems distant now, replaced by a deep sense of validation. Lee Min-ho's words have not only defended him in that moment, they've changed the way he sees himself. For the first time, Suk-jin feels like he truly belongs in the space he works in, not as someone lesser, but as someone deserving of respect. As Lee Min-ho turns to leave, he glances back at Suk-jin. "Take care of yourself," he says, his voice soft but genuine. Suk-jin smiles, still in awe of the kindness Lee Min-ho has shown him. As the door to the lobby closes behind Lee Min-ho, the atmosphere in the room shifts completely. The tension that had filled the air just moments before dissipates, leaving behind a sense of quiet admiration. Suk-jin, still standing behind the counter, tries to collect his thoughts. He is overwhelmed not just by the act of kindness, but by the fact that someone with Lee Min-ho's fame and influence would take the time to stand up for him, someone who, in his eyes, had always been just a concierge. The other guests in the lobby, who had been witness to the exchange, begin to murmur among themselves. Some whisper to each other with nods of approval, clearly impressed by Lee Min-ho's intervention. One guest, an older woman, approaches Suk-jin, offering him a warm smile. "You handled that with such grace," she says. "And what Mr. Lee did, well, that was truly something." Suk-jin looks at her, a bit surprised. "Thank you, ma'am," he replies, his voice still shaky but filled with newfound confidence. "I didn't know what to do at first. But Mr. Lee, he really helped me see things differently." The woman nods sympathetically. Sometimes, all it takes is one person to stand up for what's right, and it makes all the difference. You've got a good man in your corner. As Suk-jin continues to assist other guests, his mind keeps returning to Lee Min-ho's words, "Everyone deserves respect." The simplicity and truth of those words resonate deeply within him. In that moment, he realizes that his role at the hotel, while often undervalued by some guests, is just as important as anyone else's. He is not defined by the position he holds but by the respect he commands through his actions and his treatment of others. Later that evening, after his shift ends, Suk-jin walks home, replaying the events over and over in his mind. He thinks about how he had allowed himself to be belittled by the rude guest earlier, but also how Lee Min-ho had shown him that standing up for oneself wasn't about confrontation, it was about asserting one's worth calmly and with dignity. Suk-jin arrives at his apartment and sits down on the couch, taking a deep breath. The humiliation he had felt that afternoon no longer lingers in his heart. He feels empowered, inspired by the unexpected lesson Lee Min-ho taught him. The actor's words have sparked a change in Suk-jin that goes beyond that single confrontation. He feels more sure of himself now, more willing to stand up for himself and for others when the need arises. As days pass, Suk-jin carries this new sense of self-worth with him. His work at the hotel, once just a job he did to get by, now feels more meaningful. He interacts with guests and colleagues with a newfound confidence, no longer worried about being judged or belittled. His interactions with others are grounded in respect, both for them and for himself. Suk-jin begins to approach each task with an attitude of pride, knowing that he deserves to be treated with dignity, regardless of who he is interacting with. His colleagues notice the change in him as well. One day, his supervisor, Mrs. Park, calls him into her office. "Suk-jin," she begins with a smile, "I've noticed a positive change in your attitude lately. You've been handling things with a lot more confidence and grace. It's not gone unnoticed." Suk-jin smiles, feeling a bit embarrassed but grateful for the recognition. "Thank you, Mrs. Park. I've been learning a lot, both about my job and about myself." Mrs. Park's smile widens. "Well, it's clear that your confidence is making a difference. Keep it up. You're a valued member of this team, and I want you to know that." Suk-jin leaves her office that day with a sense of pride swelling in his chest. He feels respected, not just by others, but by himself. The confidence Lee Min-ho's intervention inspired has now become a permanent part of who he is, and Suk-jin knows that this is just the beginning of a new chapter in his life. As weeks pass, Suk-jin continues to grow in his confidence and professionalism. His new sense of self-worth begins to shape every aspect of his work, and his relationships with his colleagues improve significantly. He's no longer the quiet, reserved concierge he once was. He's now a man who knows his value and asserts it without hesitation. One evening, during a particularly busy shift at the hotel, Suk-jin faces a difficult situation when a guest becomes irate over a minor issue with his room. The guest demands an upgrade, loudly declaring that he is entitled to the best room available. Suk-jin listens patiently, his demeanor calm despite the guest's anger. "I understand your frustration, sir," Suk-jin says, his voice steady. "However, the room you've been assigned is the one you booked, and unfortunately, we don't have any upgrades available at the moment." The guest scoffs, dismissing Suk-jin's response. "Do you even know who I am?" he sneers. "I could have anyone fired for this. I demand to speak to your manager." Suk-jin doesn't flinch. He's faced difficult situations before, but this time, he feels different. He doesn't feel the need to shrink or apologize. Instead, he stands tall and calmly repeats, "Sir, I understand your concerns. I'll make sure to have my manager speak with you, but I assure you, we are doing everything we can to make your stay as comfortable as possible." The guest huffs in frustration but is taken aback by Suk-jin's calm, unwavering response. He storms off to speak with the manager, but Suk-jin doesn't feel defeated by the encounter. In fact, he feels empowered. He knows that he handled the situation with professionalism, dignity, and respect for both himself and the guest. Later that night, when Suk-jin tells Mrs. Park about the incident, she nods with approval. "I've noticed how much more confident you've become, Suk-jin. You handled that situation perfectly. I'm proud of the progress you've made." Suk-jin smiles, grateful for her support. "Thank you, Mrs. Park. It's been a journey, but I feel like I'm finally learning how to stand up for myself." Mrs. Park looks at him thoughtfully. "And you've done it with grace. That's not easy to do, especially in this line of work. But you're proving that you have the strength to handle any situation that comes your way." The recognition from Mrs. Park means a lot to Suk-jin, and it reinforces his belief that he is capable of far more than he had ever realized. His new mindset doesn't just apply to his interactions with guests, it influences how he handles his personal life as well. He begins to make decisions with greater confidence, trusting his instincts and refusing to let anyone diminish his sense of self-worth. One evening, as Suk-jin is leaving the hotel after a long shift, he spots a familiar face standing in the lobby, Lee Min-ho. The actor is casually talking with the hotel's manager, and when he sees Suk-jin, his face lights up with recognition. "Suk-jin." Lee Min-ho greets him warmly, walking over. "It's good to see you again." Suk-jin smiles, feeling a rush of gratitude. "It's good to see you too, Mr. Lee. I've been doing well, thanks to the lesson you taught me." Lee Min-ho raises an eyebrow, clearly curious. "I'm glad to hear that. What lesson are you referring to?" Suk-jin takes a deep breath, his heart swelling with appreciation. "That day in the lobby, when you stood up for me. It changed my life. I learned that I deserve respect, just like everyone else, and that I don't have to let anyone make me feel less than I am." Lee Min-ho smiles, his eyes filled with genuine pride. "You always had that strength in you, Suk-jin. I just helped you see it." Suk-jin nods, a sense of fulfillment in his heart. "I'll never forget that moment. It was more than just about defending me, it was about teaching me to stand up for myself and recognize my own worth." Lee Min-ho claps him on the shoulder, his expression sincere. "I'm proud of you. You've come a long way, and I can see that you're not just surviving, you're thriving." As Suk-jin watches Lee Min-ho leave the hotel, he realizes how far he has come. The journey that began with humiliation has led to empowerment, and the lessons he's learned from that day continue to guide him through every challenge. He is no longer the concierge who blends into the background. He is a man who commands respect, not by force, but by the quiet strength of his character. As Suk-jin continues to excel in his role, the changes in him become even more evident. He no longer sees himself as just another employee in a luxury hotel. He is a valued part of the team, respected not only for his professionalism but for his ability to remain composed in the most difficult of situations. His colleagues often seek his advice, and his newfound confidence has inspired them to stand up for themselves as well. One day, as Suk-jin is handling a guest complaint, he's approached by a newer concierge named Jaemin. Jaemin, who has been with the hotel for only a few months, seems nervous and unsure of how to handle an upset guest. Suk-jin, sensing the young man's discomfort, steps in without hesitation. "You've got this, Jaemin," Suk-jin says, his voice calm but confident. The key is to listen to the guest, acknowledge their concern, and offer a solution. They just want to feel heard. Jaemin nods, taking a deep breath. "I'm still learning how to handle these situations. I don't want to make things worse." Suk-jin smiles reassuringly. "It's okay to make mistakes. What matters is that you don't let it discourage you. Every challenge is an opportunity to grow." Jaemin looks at Suk-jin with a sense of gratitude. "Thanks, Suk-jin. I'll remember that." Later that day, Jaemin returns with a smile, telling Suk-jin that he handled the guest's concerns successfully. Suk-jin feels a deep sense of pride, not just because he helped Jaemin, but because he can see that his own journey has allowed him to support others in ways he never thought possible. As the days go by, Suk-jin's reputation at the hotel continues to grow. His colleagues trust him, and the guests begin to notice the difference in the service they receive. The professionalism and calmness Suk-jin exhibits are no longer just traits that make him good at his job, they are qualities that set him apart. He is more than a concierge, he is a leader, a mentor, and a symbol of resilience. One evening, as Suk-jin is finishing his shift, he's called into Mrs. Park's office. The manager greets him with a warm smile and a look of appreciation. "Suk-jin, I wanted to speak with you about something important," she says, motioning for him to sit. "We've been getting excellent feedback from guests, and I've noticed how much you've grown in your role. You've not only become a key part of our team, you've set an example for everyone around you." Suk-jin is taken aback by her words. He had never expected to receive such high praise. "Thank you, Mrs. Park. I'm just doing my job." Mrs. Park shakes her head. "It's more than just your job. It's the way you handle everything: guests, colleagues, difficult situations. I've been considering you for a promotion to a supervisory role. Your growth has been impressive, and I believe you're ready for it." Suk-jin's eyes widen in surprise. A promotion? He had never imagined such a possibility. I don't know what to say. I'm honored." Mrs. Park smiles. "You've earned it, Suk-jin. I can see the difference in you, and I believe you'll continue to do great things here. You're more than capable." As Suk-jin leaves her office that evening, he feels a deep sense of gratitude and pride. The journey that began with humiliation and self-doubt has led him to a place of empowerment and recognition. He no longer sees himself as just a concierge, he sees himself as someone who has the ability to make a difference, not just in his job but in the lives of those around him. That night, as Suk-jin walks home, he thinks about how far he has come. The lessons he learned from that day in the hotel lobby when Lee Min-ho stood up for him have shaped him into the person he is today. He is no longer the quiet, unsure man he once was. He is a leader, someone who knows his worth and has the strength to demand respect from others and himself. As Suk-jin adjusts to his new role, he finds that the challenges he faces are different from before. The responsibility that comes with being a supervisor requires him to not only manage guest requests and resolve issues but to also inspire and guide his team. It's a role that comes with its own set of hurdles, but Suk-jin feels ready for it. He's learned that leadership isn't just about authority, it's about understanding others, offering support, and showing the kind of respect that he had once been denied. One afternoon, while overseeing the hotel's operations, Suk-jin receives a call from one of the higher-ups at the hotel chain's corporate office. The voice on the other end of the phone is familiar. Mrs. Park had put in a recommendation for him, and now, he's being invited to a meeting with senior management to discuss his future with the company. As Suk-jin arrives at the meeting, he is greeted warmly by the management team, who have heard about his growth and the positive impact he has had on the hotel's operations. They express their admiration for how he has handled the challenges of his role with professionalism and grace. The meeting is filled with compliments and discussions about his contributions to the team. And then, they share their decision. Suk-jin, the senior manager, says, "We've been incredibly impressed by your leadership, and based on the feedback from both guests and staff, we'd like to offer you the position of assistant hotel manager at one of our flagship locations." The words hit Suk-jin like a wave. He feels a rush of excitement and disbelief. A position as assistant manager at a flagship location? It's more than he ever imagined. His hard work, determination, and growth have led him to this point. The promotion represents everything he's achieved since the difficult day when he was humiliated in the hotel lobby. "Thank you," Suk-jin replies, his voice steady but filled with gratitude. "I never imagined this opportunity would come so soon. I'm honored." As he walks out of the meeting, Suk-jin can't help but reflect on everything that has brought him to this moment. The pain and humiliation he once felt seem so distant now. They were a necessary part of his journey, shaping him into the confident, capable man he is today. He remembers Lee Min-ho's words, "You deserve respect." Those words have echoed in his mind ever since that day in the lobby, and they have become a mantra for his life. Suk-jin's promotion marks a new chapter in his career, but it also serves as a reminder that the most important lesson he has learned is not about career advancement or recognition, it's about self-respect. He now knows that no matter where life takes him, no matter how high he climbs, he will always stand tall and demand the respect he deserves. Later that evening, Suk-jin takes a quiet moment to reflect. He looks in the mirror, a small smile tugging at the corners of his lips. The man staring back at him is no longer the concierge who had been humiliated. He's a man of strength, resilience, and respect. He's a leader. And it's all because one simple act of kindness and a few words of wisdom changed everything. So, if you've made it this far, type "respect" in the comments. Let's all remember that the journey to self-worth starts with believing in ourselves and standing up for what we deserve. Respect is the foundation of everything, and we all deserve it.